This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good morning, everyone. Shalom Aleichem. I want to share with you an amazing insight of the Gra, or the Vilna Gaon, on the word RUS. And from there, I think we could delve further and see additional insight. The Gemara in Bracha says, "My RUS, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, shezachsa v'yatzi meno David." Why RUS? She merited that David came out from her. Who's David? Sherivahu l'HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'shiros v'sishbachos. David saturated Hashem with song and praise. So RUS is a lashon of rivahu. And she merited that David came from her, who saturated, who was merave Hashem with song and praise. So the Gra asks, that means the main meaning of the name is missing. Her name is saturated? What does saturated mean? The point is, she saturated, she had a child who saturated Hashem with Shira. So her name should have been Shira. We should have called her Shiur. Not Rivahu, not RUS. Rivahu is the verb. We should have used the noun, Shiur, Shevach. Says the Gra, the truth is that the reason why she's called RUS is originally, before she converted, she was chayv in Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. So afterwards, 606 mitzvahs were added. So she's called RUS. RUS is Gematria 606. That's how many mitzvahs she added upon herself. But now says the Vilna Gaon, but why would we call her RUS? We should have called her Tar. Tar means a turtle dove. As Chazal say, that she was one of the two Preidos Toivos that were going to come out of Ammon and Moav. So why do we call her Reish Vav Taf if it's all about Gematria? The word RUS doesn't really mean anything. It should be Taf Vav Reish. The answer is, the reason why we say RUS and not Tar is because she was destined to have a child who would saturate Hashem with Shiros B'Sishbachos. She was destined to have a child who would saturate HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Shiros V'Sishbachos. So let's stop and analyze this for a moment. Number one, what does it mean David saturated Hashem? You saturate something that's dehydrated, that's thirsty. Wow, so we see from here how HaKadosh Baruch Hu thirsts for the tefillos of David and for our tefillos. Hashem is literally mis'aveh l'tfilasan shel tzadikim. That's why we use a lashon of saturation. But let's delve further. Because in fact, did RUS add 606 mitzvahs? You know, there's a discussion in halacha. There's a discussion among the later poskim whether goyim are chayiv in the mitzvah of chesed and tzedakah. The Netziv in his Hakdama, actually in his Haskama to the Sefer Avas Chesed, he says on the pasuk, "Vatoisef laledes es achiv es havel." The word es achiv is extra. Es achiv means that the ikar tsuras ha'adam, in how is he different than shar bruim, is that there's a certain brotherhood. There's a certain achva. Says the Netziv, that's why goyim are also mitzuva and chesed. Why isn't it one of the Sheva mitzvahs? We don't count kum va'aseh. And therefore, the people of Sodom were liable to be destroyed because Yad Oni ve'evyon lo hechzika. Meaning the Netziv is bothered. Why was Sodom going to be destroyed? Because they didn't do chesed, but goyim are not chayv in chesed. The answer is it must be goyim are chayv in chesed. So what about, why only Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach? It should be Shemaina mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Be Shemaina mitzvahs b'nei Noach. The reason why it's not Shemaina mitzvahs is because we don't count kum va'aseh. But goyim are chayv in chesed. So here's the question. So why is she called RUS? Then she added not 606 mitzvahs, 605 mitzvahs. So the cheshbon of the Vilna Gaon is not correct. according to the Netziv. Unless you'll say, you could be off by one. You could be off by one. So really, Goyim are chayiv in 8, and really RUS added 605, but you could be off by one. Or maybe you could say, Goyim are chayiv in chesed, but this family of Elimelech and Machlon and Kilian, they ran away from chesed. They didn't want to give tzedakah of chesed. So before she converted, whether she was chayiv or not, did this mishpacha exhibit a embrace of the midah of chesed? But you say, but RUS personally did. So you'll have to say, well, you could be off by one. Or are you going to say this is a raya to the sheet of Rabbi Chanan? Rabbi Chanan Wasserman in the Kavitz Ma'amarim, he says, why was Sodom punished because they didn't give tzedakah? We don't find Bnei Noach are chayiv in more mitzvahs than 7. Says Rabbi Chanan, we know Rabbi Chaim Vital says, why doesn't the Torah warn us about midos ra'is, kas, gaiva, kina? The Rabbi Chaim Vital says that the midos are the foundation of the Torah. Without midos, you don't have kiyam Torah. So the Torah doesn't have to warn about them explicitly. You can't have the observance of mitzvahs without midos. So likewise says Rabbi Chanan, you can't have Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach without midos. And in that case, it's not that Goyim are chayiv in the mitzvah per se of chesed. It's that the achzorius is a midah ra, and they displayed achzorius. So if Goyim were chayiv in chesed, any time they failed to do chesed, they would be liable. But now they're not chayiv in chesed. They're obligated not to have corrupt midos. And therefore, because Sodom demonstrate corrupt midos, so therefore, they were punished. But perhaps this gematria of the Gra, that Goyim that RUS only added 606 mitzvahs, fits in better according to Rabbi Chanan, that Goyim are not chayiv in the mitzvah of tzedakah v'chesed. So again, the Gra is saying that when RUS converted, she only added 606 mitzvahs. What about chesed? The Netziv says it's a mitzvah. We said maybe you could be off by one. Rabbi Chanan says it's not a mitzvah. But the truth is that there are other mitzvahs that Goyim are chayiv in. There's an opinion Goyim are chayiv in pruravu. So you'll say maybe the Gra is not working with that opinion. But what about Rabbeinu Nisim? Rabbeinu Nisim writes in his Hakdama to Shas that women are chayiv in all mitzvahs, that Goyim are chayiv in all mitzvahs sichliyos. Goyim are chayiv in all mitzvahs that are logical. So, what are you going to say? You're going to say like Rabbi Chanan? That you can't have the fulfillment of the Sheva mitzvahs if they don't fulfill every mitzvah which is logical? Is that really true? You know, Rav Moshe has a tshuva that Goyim are chayiv to daven be'ez tzara because it's a mitzvah sichli. You're in eez tzara, it's part of emunah. It's logical. You can't have the Sheva mitzvahs without davening be'ez tzara. So I don't know if it suffices to say like Rabbi Chanan that the reason why Goyim are chayiv in Sheva mitzvahs is because you can't have the fulfillment of the Sheva mitzvahs without mitzvahs sichliyos. So how does the Gra's remez fit in according to Rabbeinu Nisim? The Gra says that RUS was makabel 606 mitzvahs. No, she wasn't. There were many, many, many mitzvahs that she had to do beforehand. All mitzvahs sichliyos. Perhaps we could say as follows. How do we know Goyim are chayiv in mitzvah sichliyos? Is it just a logic that God created man, and therefore it's mistaber that Goyim are chayiv in mitzvah sichliyos? Or can we say that when God told Adam, don't kill, don't steal, set up courts, don't curse Hashem, then based on that we could extrapolate that Goyim are responsible to fulfill logical mitzvahs. It's not intuitive, it's learned. God instructed Adam. So if God instructed Adam on these 7 mitzvahs, by extension, they have to fulfill all mitzvahs sechliyos. Now, there might be 50 mitzvahs sechliyos, but they all emanate from the Sheva mitzvahs. Then when RUS converted, she is accepting 606 mitzvahs. Even the mitzvahs she had to do before, until then they emanated from the Sheva mitzvahs. Now they're given a special tzivoy b'fnei atzmai. So we could uphold such a remez. RUS accepted 606 mitzvahs. Even mitzvahs she was chayiv in before. But beforehand she was chayiv in them as an extension of the Sheva mitzvahs. Now she's chayiv in them as an independent mitzvah by itself. Okay, that's just a thought on the Vilna Gaon, on why she's called RUS. I see somebody has a question. But I'm going to leave you with that thought. Everyone's welcome to join us this evening at 8:30 for an amazing shiur in preparation for the Yom Tov of Shavuos. Thank you very much. Bracha v'hatzlacha.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.